What is the wildest freak accident you've seen in person? Some Final Destination crap. I'm gonna have to draw it so you guys understand this freak accident. Not as traumatizing as the other stories, but still disturbing to see. I was around 6 playing with some friends at a park. We were all in this big wooden tree house structure that had a slide on one side and this grid of thick rope for climbing up and down the house on the other. The rope grid wasn't loose. It was stretched out on a chessboard pattern between the treehouse and the ground in an angle so we could climb it safely. Me and another 2 girls were starting to climb down the ropes, and for some reason, one of them wanted to climb it backwards, crawling down Exorcist style. She was almost at the bottom when her foot slipped and got caught between the ropes, making her fall forward while still stuck to the structure. She face planted on the bottom of the structure, where there was a wooden log covering the nails and hooks that kept the rope grid stretched out. One of the hooks wasn't totally covered. It was an old structure, pointy part up, and she landed exactly there, eyes open. The hook deflated that girl's eye. I went down to help her and saw a bunch of gooey liquid coming out of her eye. The other girl ran to find the teacher while screaming that she's dying. She wasn't, we were just scared, but it did get us quick help. Never saw her at school again. Still hate to see eye-related injuries. When Opie said it was not as disturbing and traumatizing as the other stories, I was expecting something a little, less freaky for the first one. I'm terrified of the rest of this thread now. And also, Opie did draw it, I think, but I'm gonna be so real, I get these scripts with no links in them, it's just text. So, no clue what the pictures are. Sorry. Next story. I was a passenger in a work truck heading to the shop at the end of my shift. We were in a sort of small residential/commercial town, mostly suburban. So the truck driver, very close friend of mine, and I see this massive cloud of black smoke a few blocks over. Being curious fellows, he takes the left turn and we drive towards it. We turn onto the block to find a nasty one-car crash. The driver was likely speeding, lost control, and flipped into someone's front lawn. The car was an absolute mess, and the front hood was engulfed in huge flames. My friend slams the pedal, and we start zooming towards this disaster. He's a good guy. He's not afraid of much. So he made the decision that we are going to help. He starts grabbing my shirt and shaking me and yelling, "Holy crap, there's a person in that car. We gotta help. Get ready to hop out." My gosh, the nerves started flying, but hey, it was game time. So we stop the truck and both hop out. There's already a crowd of people filming across the street. We both run across the street to see an unconscious man buckled into the driver's seat. Luckily, the door was just freaking gone. I don't even know where it was. The flames were so big and it was so hot, but this man was about to burn to death. My buddy just commits and jumped in the car to get his seatbelt off. Tells me to grab his legs and we drag his body out. He is completely messed up, covered in blood, cuts, foaming out of the mouth. It was a mess. Well, we carry him about 30 yards out and lay him flat. He starts coughing and attempts to speak. It's extremely unclear what he's saying, so we give the guy a little water. He coughs up blood. Then the words come out of his mouth saying, "No cops. Please, no cops." He's extremely well dressed. The car was very nice. Lots of jewelry. Then he mutters another sentence. "Please get me out of here. No cops." I don't know. So many witnesses, cops have clearly been called, and people are filming. Me and my buddy felt like we did our part, and this guy was going to burn to death. He's alive and he's conscious. We said screw it, ran back to the truck and drove off. I didn't realize how much blood was on me until we got back to the shop. Our coworkers looked at us like we had committed murder. Craziest adrenaline rush I've ever had. Huge respect to first responders who do this for a living. Very scary situation. Next story. When I was 17, I spent my summer working at the municipal airport where my dad was the manager. One of the tasks was keeping the grass short around the asphalt and sod, grass, runways, and the tetrahedron as well, or landing direction indicator. We did this by using a tractor towing a brush hog mower. My dad had taught me how to drive the tractor and run the brush hog before, but I didn't do a good enough job mowing around the tetrahedron. My dad let me know his displeasure and sent me into the airport office while he finished the job. While I was in the office reading a book, I noticed out of the corner of my eye that the tractor was heading towards the building without a driver. I ran out to see what was going on when the tractor turned by itself to show me that my dad was being dragged along with his lower body under the brush hog. Before I could get to him, he went fully under the brush hog and came out the back. Everything from the waist down was gone. A gory wake trailing behind the brush hog. His final slip under the brush hog left a nasty gash on the side of his head. I knew my dad was already gone, and I had to stop the tractor before it hit something critical like the nearby fuel pumps. Doing that was not an easy task, as I couldn't climb on board the moving tractor, and I was afraid that I would be the next victim of the brush hog. I ran in and contacted the city phone operator. This was before 911 was in our area, and finally got the police and ambulance out to the airport. Of course, nothing could be done, except for cleaning up the mess and conducting an investigation and autopsy. I had to make a statement, as I was the only witness. No one could understand what caused my dad to fall off the tractor such that he would get caught by the brush hog. It was possible that the tractor hit the tetrahedron and he was knocked off. It was declared a freak accident. When I finally got home, my brother noticed that I wasn't crying. He said I could cry if I wanted to, but I never did. Not even at the funeral. I still have never cried over what happened. It's been almost 50 years since that event. I still recall it like it happened yesterday. I sometimes struggle with feeling a sense of partial responsibility. For some reason, I know the thread we're in, but I keep expecting these stories to end up better. This is just horrifying. Not only that it happened, but OP had to witness it. OP saw it and the aftermath. I know OP said they've never cried over it, but I hope they have gotten out their guilt, whatever, emotions for this somehow at least. You cannot keep all that in. The emotional burden would just be insane. Next story. Leaving graduation for someone, and one of the grandparents didn't see the curb and walked like she was walking on a flat surface. When her foot dropped that 6 inches unexpectedly, the jolt went through her spine, and she was instantly on the ground with both legs paralyzed. Apparently she had some type of defect in her vertebrae that severed enough nerves in her spine to paralyze her lower body. She could still feel them but couldn't move them. Also was on a boat deep-sea fishing in the Gulf. The captain had hooked something huge and spent 15 minutes struggling with whatever it was. All of a sudden, the fishing pole breaks in half, springs back, smacking him in the face just to the right of his nose. He grabs his face, stumbles around the boat, trips over a cooler, and goes overboard. We're all trying not to laugh as the 2 crew are trying to pull him in. He gets in and has this purple welt running from his forehead to his chin. He asks us if he's bleeding, and we all just freaking lost it. I about peed my pants, I laughed so hard. He then says, "That was my favorite pull." And we all started laughing even harder. Great fishing trip. Caught loads of keepers. And not an accident, but I was working in a factory in high school helping a 32-year-old guy stock shelves. He was looking at me talking, then all of a sudden he stopped mid-word like someone pressed a mute button. A few seconds later his body just collapsed, and he was dead. Brain aneurysm. OP, man, you gotta put the funny one at the end, or even at the start, just not in the middle of 2 serious ones. Maybe I'm biased because I have to read these with the right tone and everything, but I had no idea where any of these stories was going, especially after the second one. I was treating it all serious and then had to retake a few lines because I'm like, wait, everyone's fine, this is just a funny story. Come on, OP. Think of the Reddit readers on YouTube. Next story. I saw a little kid of 3 to 5 fall out of the back seat of a car in a parking lot and get run over by the back wheel in Kansas in the early 00s. The kid left a huge pool of blood. I was most affected by someone screaming like, "We need to call an ambulance," and the mother screaming over her injured child, "I can't afford an ambulance." She picked the kid up, put her in the car, and sped away. Next story. Saw a guy get pinned between a roadwork truck and a car and cut completely in half. Died within a minute. Cones were set for half a mile, and an old lady was trying to get around one last truck before merging. The truck was unwilling to let the lady in, and the lady was unwilling to be one less car behind in traffic. The road worker was getting water from the back of the truck when the lady hit him and pinned him between her car and the truck, cutting him completely in half. He turned completely white and let out a scream I can still hear. He was dead as soon as the scream stopped. Next story. I was sitting at an intersection, one car back to turn right. A cop with lights and sirens was attempting to cross the intersection against a red light. All traffic is stopped. The cop starts to cross, and 2 vehicles come flying through the intersection. One hits the cop and bounces into the other car. The other car, sent flying, rolls once in the air and lands on 2 college-aged guys that were standing 10 feet away from me. At the time, I was on my way to go to work as an EMT, so I immediately got out and tried to help. Both college guys were very much so underneath the car, and lots of blood was coming out. The driver of the flipped vehicle wasn't wearing a seatbelt, but somehow was unscathed. Many bystanders and the driver of the flipped vehicle and I pushed the car off the pedestrians. What remained of them was the most graphic scene I have ever witnessed. I puked and a few others did too. I quit my job as an EMT that day and almost became an alcoholic. I'm okay now. Don't love telling this story, but I can without crying at this point. I couldn't do anything more to save them. That really messed me up. Next story. I'm a mural artist. I'm constantly working on walls outdoors. Many years ago, I was doing a project in North Philly, and it was a particularly windy day. I happened to take a break from what I was doing and was standing at the corner of the scaffolding, and I could see across the street a woman waiting for a bus. This woman was standing 3 buildings in from the corner. When I was done taking a break, I got back to work, and I heard a loud crash, like a giant piece of glass exploded. I turn around to see that same woman looking at the ground in disbelief. A full window pane and all fell out of the building that she was standing directly under. It was so windy that day that the wind actually carried the glass to the corner of the street where it smashed on the ground and exploded. The woman was completely fine. I got down and talked to her, stating the obvious, that she was the luckiest person I'd ever seen. She agreed. Next story. Driving east on a divided highway. Saw cars on the westbound side suddenly start slowing down and moving erratically. Trash can had taken off a work truck and was bouncing on the highway. Car ended up slamming on the brakes, but the massive asphalt/dump truck behind it couldn't stop in time. Driver pulled hard to the right, missed the car, went up an embankment, and rolled the truck to the left, down the hill, and back onto the berm. I had towels in my car. I had been to the beach and didn't unpack them yet. Kind of on autopilot, I pulled over and crossed the lanes. Everyone had stopped. It caused a lot of dust to kick up and was loud. I jumped to the barrier to get to the other side. Guy on motorcycle and I got to the truck first. No one on that side got out of their cars at first, which is weird to think of now. Driver was out of the truck laying on his side, bleeding from his head. Truck was still running. Some guy shows up and manages to shut off the truck while me and motorcycle guy apply pressure to the guy's head. He was not a good color. Looked gray. Then a nurse showed up, so we let him take over. Paramedics finally got there. I stayed to answer questions for the police. Heard the next day that the man had died. But he sure as crap saved other people's lives that day. Next story. I was driving down a dark road with no street lights in my area that's really wooded, and I'm driving behind this SUV when all of a sudden, the back end of the SUV flips over the front end, literally out of nowhere. 1 minute it's driving 45 mph. The next, it's doing a front flip and lands upside down with the front of the car facing me. I slam on my brakes and luckily wasn't driving too close, so I was able to stop in time. I get out of my car while dialing 911 in complete shock at what looked like some crazy Matrix crap, and I watch a middle-aged woman climb out of the smashed windshield of the upside-down vehicle, seeming completely fine. She immediately goes over and helps an older woman, I assume her mom, out of the smashed passenger side window. Neither woman is hurt, and the driver's first words are, "God damn it, we just bought this car." Turns out there was a downed telephone wire that got pulled taut across the road and acted as a tripwire. It's a selfish thought, but I always thanked God there was a car in front of me who hit it first, because it was completely invisible across the dark road. It's astonishing neither of them were seriously hurt, let alone lost their lives. I know it's probably the adrenaline, but not acknowledging the absolute insanity that just happened, and only being like, "This is a new car," is insanely hilarious. I'm glad everyone was okay. Makes me feel a lot better about laughing at this story. Next story. I watched a man fall 2 stories from a ladder head first onto concrete. It sounded and looked like a melon hitting the floor. It split his head from front to back, kind of like a pistachio nut before you crack it. I held his head together with a towel for half an hour until the ambulance turned up. He lived. Also, I was in the army for 6 years, and we were out on patrol when my friend, who was walking point in front of me, got hit in the stomach by a Beretta 50 cal sniper rifle that blew a hole through him. I tried to stop the bleeding, but he died 6 minutes later. And I once saw a friend get partially disemboweled by a drunk Turkish guy with a knife when I was based in Germany. Next story. Day after wedding. Heading to a party with the bride, groom, and all their friends on a coach bus. A girl was walking down the aisle and lost her balance as we were making our way around a bend at 80 kilometers an hour. Had she been anywhere else on the bus, she would have landed in someone's lap and laughed it off. Sadly, she was standing at the top of the rear staircase, fell backwards and hit the door, which then opened, and she hit the pavement, only to get hit by oncoming traffic. She was airlifted to a hospital 2 hours away and died on arrival. Instead of an after party with all their dear friends, the married couple spent the day with everyone giving police statements on the side of a highway. Every year, their anniversary is heartbreaking. Next story. I was headed for a railroad overpass, 2 lanes going each way. Guy makes a right-hand turn out in front of me, forcing me to hit my brakes and move into the right-hand lane. As he goes over the overpass, a stretched limousine coming the other way violently spun out on some black ice. It slammed into the guy that cut me off. Had he not cut me off, I'd have been exactly where he was when the limo hit him. The limo driver lost his life. The guy who cut me off hadn't been wearing his seatbelt and went face first into his windshield. I stopped and administered some first aid to the jerk that cut me off, because he did save me from some serious injury. He was driving a van. I had a subcompact hatchback. Next story. I was about 8 years old. We were driving to Milton Keynes for a day out. It was New Year's Eve 2008. There was a motorbike speeding past us, overtaking, and went head-on into a car. I was sitting behind my dad, driving on right-hand side as we lived in the UK, and I saw everything. My dad slammed his brakes on and ran out to help. I believe the dude died on the way to the hospital. Next story. A drunk driver crashed into a pole which ejected him from his driver's seat, through the windshield, and his body went head first at a fire hydrant. I didn't see the aftermath, but I'm pretty sure he died instantly. Don't drink and drive. Next story. Saw the aftermath, didn't see the actual accident. Working in A&E in a fairly big trauma center, a couple of lads happened to be out of the front of the hospital popping wheelies on their mopeds. One of them fell all the way backwards and the scooter kept going, dragging his head along the road. He was brought into the department almost immediately after the accident. We stopped CPR after about 20 minutes because his brain kept falling out with each compression. Wear a helmet, kids. So, let me get this straight. They were actively doing this out front of a hospital. I don't know how, but this seems like tempting fate in a bad way. Like, what was their thought process there? If it goes wrong, the hospital's right there, we'll be fine. Like, come on, man. Next story. This isn't as crazy as some of these stories I've read, but it was wild to me. I was on my way to work driving down the highway. I'm running late, so I speed by this 18-wheeler. Nothing special about that, except about 10 or 15 seconds after I've passed the 18-wheeler, something catches my attention in the rearview mirror. When I look up into the mirror, I see the 18-wheeler came to a complete stop suddenly, flipped over, and landed upside down and slid down the highway. I'm watching this thing from maybe 100 yards behind me just sliding down, and inevitably blocking traffic for the day that I thankfully missed. Next story. Was sitting in an intersection connected to a highway off-ramp, and suddenly, a biker flew down the ramp and went airborne, straight into a wall. He was going about 160 miles per hour. It was not pretty. Body parts landed on some people's cars and on the road. No warning or anything, just a sudden zoop, then bang. Next story. Was sitting at the end of a side road waiting for traffic to clear so I could enter the main road. A little Jeep starts to make a left turn into the driveway where I'm waiting. He wasn't paying attention, and at a full 50 miles per hour, he is slammed into by a giant semi-truck, literally 3 feet from my car. Didn't even understand what had happened at first. It was so quick, and it sounded like a train crash. The car gets absolutely catapulted 20 feet down the road, rolls a dozen times, and lands upside down in a ditch. It was flattened. Looking at the wreck, I had really believed I just witnessed the end of someone's life. Ran up to the Jeep to see if there was anything I could do to help, but before I even reached the driver's side door, the kid came crawling out of the smashed window. He was walking around panicking, of course, but completely coherent and asking for a phone to call his parents. The only visible wound he had was a small gash on the side of his head. He walked over to the ambulance on his own once they arrived on scene. Looked it up a few days later to see if the kid made it out okay, and the good news is, he was in and out of the hospital within 48 hours and almost as good as new. I still can't believe it. Next story. Not sure if this totally fits here, but I saw a small dog get hit by a car. She went totally under the wheel. It was raining, getting dark, and no one else stopped, just slowed down as they passed her. As I got closer, I saw her little head pop up and look around, so I pulled over, I ran into traffic, scooped her up and put her in my car, rushed her to the ER where they x-rayed her. Turns out somehow, she only had a broken back leg, but otherwise was completely fine. We didn't know who the owners were since she wasn't chipped and didn't have a tag, so to the internet I went. Then, I found her owners. A family with 2 kids. The kids had taken her across the street to the park to play. A guy in a van showed up, held the kids at gunpoint, and stole their dog. This had happened about a week before, and somehow the dog got away and was trying to find her way back home when she got hit. All were reunited, and it was a happy ending. Definitely the craziest thing I've ever witnessed. Opie, I think you glossed over the kids getting held up at gunpoint for their dog. Excuse me? That is almost a freak accident in its own, isn't it? I guess not by definition, but what is going on there? Those kids must have been terrified, let alone losing their dog. My God. Next story, unfortunately, happened to me. When I was about 9 or so, I was swinging at the park, trying to go as high as I could. I weighed very little at the time, so I was able to jump off and soar extremely high, and I mean high. I don't know how, but I got up so high I was multiple feet above the swing set. I was able to see the entire landscape of the park as well as my outstretched town. To this day, I remember it being a little more than 2 stories high. Anyway, landed on the ground and couldn't get up. Couldn't move a muscle. I vividly remember calling out to my mom saying I can't get up. I was able to stand when I was helped up. Only then did my mom realize I had fractured and dislocated my elbow. My entire arm was turned around and dangling. We'd come to learn it was so bad it was cutting off circulation from the brachial artery there. I went into circulatory shock, passing in and out, pale, speaking gibberish, which I don't remember, I thought I was talking fine, and hallucinating. I could never do the jumping off the swings thing, even from like a medium height. I think I was just a coward as a kid. But I want to know what kind of swings Opie was on to get that much air. 2 stories high? Is that real or just misremembering because you were a child? Either way, Opie, glad to hear you're fine now. But honestly, I didn't think jumping off swing sets was such risky business. Anyway, that's the last story for today. I would like to thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day or a night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.